Welcome back to our conversation about what is happening on Beacon Hill with the CEO of the Statehouse News Service, Craig Sandler. And Craig, this past week, a group of African-American staffers on Beacon Hill, people who work in the various offices in the legislature specifically, wrote and released a letter to the leadership of the House and Senate with a list of demands. Very briefly, what is it they want, and what's the reaction been from the establishment?
The staffers want a real acknowledgement of micro and macro aggression, as they said, that they face many of the same racist behaviors and practices doing their jobs that Black people across the nation report and from their employers. And that includes the lobbyists that are best buddies with the people who run especially the House. The House put out a statement in response that made rather treacly noise about the personnel policies they've put in place before that have impressed no one that I know of. And I can't imagine that if I were one of those staffers and I saw that response from the House, that I would have any sense that something meaningful was going to happen. So that when we return to physical reality, I'm going to be fascinated to see how much noise these staffers make and whether there's any meaningful response, especially from the House.
Let's use the balance of our time here, Craig, to talk about, obviously, the number one issue on everybody's minds, which is the virus and the state's response to it and the impact on our economy. We were doing real well there for a while, and we're still doing great compared to most other states. But the infection rate that we see in testing has inched back up to 2% in recent days. There have been anecdotal stories of parties going on where clusters of infection occur. And the governor on Friday was expressing some alarm about this. Is he gonna, at what point is he gonna have to retreat from the scheduling of the reopening? And I'm especially interested in the looming catastrophe, in my view, of the return of the college kids. What can you tell me from the inside about both those topics?
All right. Well, I smile at the word catastrophe, but there's really nothing to smile about. The other states that have ran into trouble because they opened the bars and because they opened their major employers. Well, guess what? Colleges, higher education is a major employer here. And when you get college students together, I don't know if it's okay to break this on your air, John, but they drink a lot. They get together and they're not terribly responsible. That's exactly what leads to an increase, especially in the retransmission rate, which is what it's all truly about in terms of controlling an epidemic. Now, I think that I will predict that Governor Baker will lower the size of gatherings this coming week as a signal and as a fairly politically acceptable signal. You people are behaving badly. And I think that then in the fall, I don't see a path that doesn't lead to a pretty serious problem in Boston and perhaps spreading throughout the state for obvious reasons. And I think that Baker is in a political position, which is so much of what it's about, to roll back if necessary. And I think he's going to do it. He's not facing re-election. The public is with him, and I think he's going to do it if we do see that catastrophe you referenced.
Never a dull moment up there. Craig, we're glad you and the gang at the Statehouse News Service, where, full disclosure, I write a twice-a-week column on Tuesdays and Thursdays on Master List. We're glad you guys are up there keeping track of it. Thank you for your time.